And a lot of people are thinking of Django for something that is great for generating, RESTful APIs, just crude APIs and generating forms. But the truth is that if you need some heavy business logic application, Django is still a great choice.
Yes.
And Django is not the framework that just generates APIs. Django is the framework that gives you the freedom to do whatever you want if you understand it deep enough.
And again, that's why we are using it to build the backends for our clients, because you can use Python to actually create the data model, the business layer, and the abstractions that you need for your business layer using Python, and then leverage Django to be your web and HTTP wrapper with the ORM, with the admin, with the URLs, with the way you can do APIs. And if you combine those two things together, then you can build whatever you like of whatever scale you like with Django. Hello everyone, and welcome back to HackCast. This is episode number 7, and we are filming in January 2023. So happy New Year! Woo! Yeah, we are once again back in our HackCast studio, and 7 episodes so far. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's fine. The hosts are good. The logo is nice. The camera quality is getting better. So I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, so far so good. Much better than season 1. And as we said in episode number 1 of season 2, we are aiming for 10 episodes. And then we're just going to continue recording, but call it season number 3.
Because why not?
Yeah. Because why not? Because
season 3 is nice.
Let's have a structure.
Yeah,
why not?
Yeah.
All right, and for this episode number 7, we decided to talk, after talking about Next, Vercel, serverless, and headless stuff, we decided to finally talk about Django. Why is that?
The good old Django, because we love it. This is still the main tool that we use for writing web applications.
Yeah.
This is the thing that we use for the past, I think, 10 years.
Something like this. I think even before we started HackSoft, we were working with Django, so we have more than 10 years of experience, and we can talk quite a lot about it because, as you say, as HackSoft, we are well known as Django developers.
Django developers, yeah.
And sometimes clients do find us because they are looking for someone to take care of their Django application, or they specifically want something to be built in Django, and then they reach out to us. So we can share quite a lot of experience, and this particular episode, we're going to give our perspective on Django from our experience of working with it, and perhaps answer the most important question: why are we using Django, and why are we still using Django? What do we like about it?
All right, yeah. What is the best thing you like about Django? For me, it is Python. First of all,
okay,
I love it because Python is the language that I really enjoy writing. It's quite expressive. You can do a lot of things with Python, and writing web applications with Python, to me, is a great idea.
Yeah, I can agree. The language is really important, and Python is a very simple language where you can just use the basic tools like functions, for cycles, and if statements, and dictionaries and lists, and you can go a long way with just that. And it's really simple and it's easy to understand. And if you build web applications on top of that, then even better. And Django, I think Django is still the most popular web framework for Python. It was 10 years ago, I think, still.
Yeah.
Not really sure about 10 years ago. Right now it is.
It is for sure.
It is for sure, yeah. And for me, Django, I asked myself this question: why are we still using Django? Because we can use quite a lot of other things. We have experience with, like equal experience with TypeScript and Node and stuff like this, but we're still using Django. And it's because it's very stable and mature.
Mature, yeah, it is.
It's like a web development framework which has a lot of tools and a lot of abstractions. It's really batteries included, but somehow they got the HTTP part of it, because it's web development framework, right.
Yeah.
And you're not going to hit any obscure bugs that you can hit with newer frameworks. It's like it's old, mature, and stable web framework that is battle tested, and you know it's going to work for your main use case of building web applications because of the maturity, and because it's really been battle tested over the years. So in general, if you ask me, this is why I love Django, because I know I can rely on it.
Okay.
I know that
Reliable,
there are not going to be any really strange, obscure bugs from the framework itself.
Okay, the framework
not
is
from
stable,
my application code. Because this is something that's really frustrating. You're like writing some kind of application, and suddenly you hit a framework-related bug. And you have to drop from your flow of writing application code, and you have to start debugging the framework, and you have to start Googling around the framework, and sometimes you have to patch and hack the framework. And this is something that can happen with Django, but I think it's a rare occasion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've been using other frameworks, let's say for Python, Flask
and Fast API.
Fast API, yeah. And I think it's pretty rare, or at least from my experience, to find a bug in the framework, because all the other frameworks are pretty mature too. They are for quite some time. But what I really miss when I'm not using Django is this productivity that basically Django delivers, because Django has all the needed tools for writing web applications in there. And whenever we are in a situation where we are not using Django, I'm always missing these tools, these utilities, this, let's say, authentication, security stuff that are in there, and you're normally using them in every application. I have seen a lot of situations where the app infrastructure and the app architecture is kind of wrong because you don't have the tools you need in place, and that's why you're just taking bad decisions, not because the things that you are doing are good ideas, but because you don't have other choices because the tools are not there.
Yeah.
And I think for me, Django is all about productivity.
Okay.
Because all the tools are there. You need, let's say, middlewares. Oh, you have plenty of them. You need advanced way to reverse your URL. So you have it in there. You need all the utilities, all the little functions, all the helpers that are just in there, and you normally use them. You use them a lot. Even if you're starting something really small, and we are like, oh, we're never going to need Django for this. We need something really small and fast just to put it there. At some point, you need these utilities.
And you're going to get there.
Yeah, and you're off. We needed to start this with Django.
Yeah, every time. And so perhaps the very first thing that really shines in every Django application, it's the ORM.
It is.
It's the models. Because the other alternative is SQL Alchemy, which I cannot say it's bad, but from our experience, there were always some obscure, not bugs, but corner cases that you need to know about.
And it is developed to be, the SQL Alchemy is developed to be an ORM, not in the context of web development. It's just an ORM.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out your way to plug it in your web application and combine it with the HTTP lifecycle and all of these things you need to think about and actually reinvent the wheel when you decide.
Sometimes you need to do that. And in Django, it's included in the web framework. So, for example, I would very much love to have the Django ORM extracted from Django and have it as a standalone ORM.
It would be great.
It would be great, yeah. But the ORM itself, it's again stable and mature, and you can basically do the data modeling that you need to do when you're building software applications with these. And if you need some more advanced features from your specific database, there are also built-in abstractions, for example, for building indexes or what else? Adding constraints and validations. You can do it in a descriptive way, like you describe your models, but you also can just drop into something more low level next to the database and do whatever you like.
Yeah.
So the ORM in combination with the migrations framework. So the migrations framework in Django is just
it is good.
It's really good.
It is good.
It's really good, especially again we've had some experience with Alembic. I think you had some experience with Alembic.
Yeah, it is.
And it was not as good, perhaps.
It was far away from what we have in Django.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that the Django ORM is by far the best ORM I have ever seen. I think any language for me. It's way more mature than anything in Python. The migrations framework, again, it is a great framework and it is combined to work with everything in Django. So if you're trying to build your own framework with, let's say, Alembic, SQL Alchemy, some kind of fast API, and you try to combine all of this and build yourself a framework, you're going to hit so much corner cases and things that you have never thought, because in Django these problems are already solved.
Exactly.
And if you try to do this, you're like 99% of the time switching to Django at some point.
Yeah, so it's really battle tested, and a lot of bugs have been found through the years and also fixed. So the ORM and the migrations, only because of this, I am kind of leaning always towards starting with Django for the backend, because we know what we're doing, and we know that since we have so many years of experience with Django, we can be productive using the ORM and using the migrations. They play really well together. You still have to learn them, and you still have to go through some of the edge cases. But the other good thing is that they're usually documented, and you can point someone to the documentation and say, just read this entire page, try it out, read the page again, and then you're good to go. You know what you have to do. And then for me, the Django admin is part of the ORM package because it's mostly built around the ORM. It plays really well with the ORM, and it gives you the opportunity to just auto-generate or scaffold a admin page based on your models that you can just use for either developing, debugging, or put in some effort and make it like a very simple back office.
That's the key, a very simple back office. Because we've seen a lot of cases where people try to extend the Django admin so far that it basically becomes a fully featured like system. And I don't think that's designed to be the case.
Yes.
And probably should not go there. It is nice to have some kind of a back office, just to have it there, to give it to your clients, at least see what's happening in the database.
Yes.
Best case, read-only back office, because
exactly, yeah. You usually want to have a separate admin that's kind of read-only and give it to the client.
Yes.
And so the admin for showing models is great. For showing additional pages and forms, it's a bit hacky.
It's okay.
There are good articles on the internet for how to do it. And once you've done it like a couple of times, then you know how to do it. But this is what I like, because when we usually start with the backend and the data models and the data modeling and doing some proof of concepts, I can rely on the Django admin to be my user interface for something that I can give to the clients, so they can click around and experiment and basically have a very simple user interface. It's not going to be the final one. We're most probably building something else, something more sophisticated, but it's right there out of the box, and I can have a new Django application with the data models, with some additional logic on top of it, with the admin deployed somewhere in a matter of days.
Absolutely, that's true. Well, the deployment part is a little tricky, but we'll get to this later. You said something really, really, really important to me. There are good articles on how to do X.
Yes.
So this is one of the main parts for me why Django is great, because it's so mature. Then whenever you're trying to do something, there is already a good article on how to do this.
Yes.
If there is not a good article, then we're probably still writing it. So and it's going to appear in our blog at some point.
Yes.
So the framework is so mature, so many people are using it, that on the internet there is plenty of information and tutorials and stuff. And on the other hand, whenever a new service is being developed, let's say you want to integrate your Django project with something, the providers are keeping Django in mind, and they are writing articles for the most mature frameworks, for Django, for Rails, for the other main players. So every major thing that you want to integrate with already has like tutorial package, some kind of API, something for Django. Let's say Sentry, of course, they have their SDK for Django. It's just plug and play. It just works. And
the Sentry app itself is based on Django.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah, so it's kind of normal to have a good Django integration. But again, everything that let's say Pusher, if you want to use some kind of WebSocket and stuff, we use Pusher a lot. They have a good tutorial on how to integrate it with Django. And they don't have like 20 tutorials. They have 5 tutorials, and one of them is Django. So this, again, for me is pretty important in terms of productivity, because it is mature and people are using it a lot. That makes a great community around it.
This is a great argument, because with Django, you know that someone has your back for whatever integration you want to do. Even if it's kind of an obscure integration, there is a high chance for someone writing about it with Django in mind, or building a third-party application. And the entire ecosystem of third-party applications is again, well established and mature, and there are quite a lot of stable and good third-party packages that you usually use with your Django app. For example, when we use Django, we are using it mostly for backend, and we're building APIs. We're not using it for views and templates because React is better.
Yeah, React is better, and the only thing we use it in terms of views and templates is the admin.
Exactly. Yeah,
we have APIs and admin. In almost every project.
And if you want to build APIs with Django, the package that you usually install is called Django REST Framework.
A great package.
A great package, which is again very stable and mature and basically covers all your cases. It has a lot of abstractions, but it also has quite a lot of tutorials and for how to do throttling, how to do rate limiting, authentication, everything. And it has everything you need in order to build an API and to ship a production-ready API with a lot of examples, a lot of documentation, and it's just you install it. For me, it's part of Django core.
It is.
It's a third-party package, but I'm treating it as part of Django core. Which is really important, and the ecosystem, it's good.
You said something quite important, and that is Django and all of the packages out there are giving you the great amount of abstraction.
Yes.
So you can easily go to the documentation, copy some kind of a snippet, put it in your code, and it's going to work.
Yes.
But you definitely need your go-to definition working, so you can jump in this abstraction, see how it works, and deeply understand it in order to be really productive with Django.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're just going to copy some things from the documentation and hope they work. And we have seen this on so many places. We have seen this on so many projects that just came here, and we have to fix them, we have to improve them, and it's normally not ending good. So in order to be productive with Django, you not only need to read the documentation and be good at copying things and pasting them in your code base, you need to be good at jumping into this abstraction, understand Python, understand how it works, and deeply understand the abstractions.
Oh, for sure, that's a good point. So Django is great to get you going, and you can build a lot of things by just using the abstraction provided by Django, the highest level of abstractions, the views that are crammed together, that are doing all the things. But you also need to go deeper and understand what's happening beneath this abstraction and why this abstraction was created, and perhaps if there are other better choices, perhaps not to use this abstraction all the time or at all. We will get there. In order to feel confident navigating around a Django code base. This is really important because things tend to get complex with time, and just staying on the surface level with the provided abstraction won't get you there. It will get you started, but you need to put in the effort to understand how things are working.
And in my opinion, the whole Django team and the Django community is really using this for, I guess, getting new developers into the framework and understanding it. So on their website, the first sentence there is, Django makes it easier to build better web applications quickly with less code. So they are using this less code thing. So get this 4 lines of code and you will have a fully create, read, update, and delete API. But in real life, you never need a fully RESTful CRUD API over an objects. You need to build specific APIs for specific needs. You need to have your permissioning there. So it is not enough just to get the WoW code thing from Django. You definitely need to jump in there and understand how things are actually working and when to use something and when not to use it.
That's a great point. Again, it's great to get you going, and sometimes this is what you need. But you need to dive deeper and understand how things are working.
And a lot of people are thinking of Django for something that is great for generating, RESTful APIs, just CRUD APIs and generating forms. But the truth is that if you need some heavy business logic application, Django is still a great choice. And Django is not the framework that just generates APIs. Django is the framework that gives you the freedom to do whatever you want if you understand it deep enough.
And again, that's why we are using it to build the backends for our clients, because you can use Python to actually create the data model, the business layer, and the abstractions that you need for your business layer using Python, and then leverage Django to be your web and HTTP wrapper with the ORM, with the admin, with the URLs, with the way you can do APIs, And if you combine those two things together, then you can build whatever you like of whatever scale you like.
Yes.
With Django. Django by default comes with this idea of splitting things into apps, which is great because it forces you to think about what apps you're going to have. And usually you split your apps by domains, different domains from your business in different apps. Sadly, it does not support out of the box apps within apps.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of tutorials for how to approach this and for how to do it. And sometimes it's a good idea to split apps within apps to have this. And again, this is why it shines for me, because it's a stable wrapper around Python and you can build things of various complexity with it. And then again, you have usually in a web application, you're not only having an APIs, like APIs that are someone is interacting with them, but you usually need some kind of background processing of various complexity again. And this is where Celery, which is also a very popular Python-based framework for writing background processing and tasks and task management, it integrates really well into Django and integrates so well that you can have your Celery tasks being able to live in the same code base first, and second, being able to access the ORM of Django.
Yes.
And this is really, 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 really powerful because you don't need to, out of the box, have a separate thing for your tasks and duplicate the data layer and the data model, or extract a third shared library for your data model of 10 models. Celery just integrates inside your Django app in the same code base, in the same context, and it's great.
And it integrates in an easy way.
Yes.
That's to me is a core thing, because I've been in many situations where we don't use Django and people are taking decisions. Let's say, we're not going to do a task for this. We're going to do this on the HTTP layer just because we don't have the underlying infrastructure done. And if we want to do it, yes, we can. We can add Celery to our, let's say, fast API project or whatever, but we don't have the time for this now. So we again taking not great decisions because Celery is just not there. Yeah. On the other hand, if you're using Django and Celery is not part of Django itself, but it's really easy to integrate. It's just a matter of a couple hours to set it up.
Yes.
And
it's officially supported to be integrated inside Django.
Yes. Even our project that basically generates a Django project out of the box, it comes with Celery. Yeah. So every project that we start, there is a Celery in there.
You always need a background processor for something for your tasks. It's extremely important.
Even for something simple, let's say to trigger an email, it's always better to do it on the background instead of on the foreground, right?
Yep.
So it needs to be there. And again, Django makes it easy to take proper decisions because you have all of the tools nearby. If you just need the right tool, just grab it and do your work properly instead of doing something hacky.
And all of those tools have been battle tested, and there are plenty of articles for how to scale this thing.
Yes.
Because it has been battle tested. And again, it's really well-rounded framework. You have good cache integration. You can just swap Redis and have a cache framework inside your Django application, which we can use on you can use on the API layer or inside Celery. It's like
whatever you like.
Yeah, whatever you like. It's integrated. You have really you have good support for files, for static files, for media files, all the things that at first they sound kind of strange. Why do you need this? But then you go to some other web framework that is not supporting it really well, and you figure out, okay, I finally understand why they have made those decisions in Django. And if I am right now in this particular new framework to start doing it, I will end up with something that looks very closely to what Django has done.
Yes, but it's not battle tested, and it's something that you write, so you probably don't test it as much as the guys in Django did and all of the community. You know what else is really hard to mess up with Django?
What?
Your security layer. Because
good call.
It comes with good default settings about security, and you don't need to think for a lot of things, although it's a great idea to read the whole article in the Django documentation about what these settings are, which attacks they are preventing, and how to use these settings wisely.
Out-of-the-box security, battle-tested out-of-the-box security, web security, there are quite a lot of topics. And if you just read the documentation, as you said, you will figure out that, okay, they have thought about a lot of things.
If you're not using it, if you're not using Django, if you're using something way lower level that doesn't have this kind of security settings,
you have to take care of it.
You need to take yourself, or at least you need to have someone to take care of this, because this is not something that all of the developers are pretty familiar with, the web security and the security settings in your production application.
And there's something really nice. It's, again, mature, well-rounded framework, which you can use to build applications of variable complexity and scalability. And if the case is that right now you're using something else, some web framework that's not Django, and it's not as mature and it's not as big, what I end up usually doing is I'm looking at concepts from Django and figuring out what do I need in addition to my framework so I can make my life more bearable. So even if you're not using Django, you can use Django as like a template of what you need and just pick different concepts and figure out how to adapt those different concepts to your framework. And again, this is extremely powerful. And again, this is why we are still using Django.
And it's so good for hiding this complexity from you that sometimes I don't realize it's there.
Yes.
And when I'm using something, let's say like Express, Node with Express, and I have a problem, and I'm like, why don't we have these problems with Django? And that's the point I realize how Django is handling these kind of problems, and that's the point where I deeply understand it and try to write the same things with Node.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think, at least for me, this is a good overview of why we're still using Django and why Django is still relevant. Because this is always the question: is Django still relevant today? And I think yes, because
Definitely.
all of this, and it's going to be even more relevant as it matures more and more. Which does not mean that other web frameworks are irrelevant, but for the average usual use case, Django is going to be better at all the things that it's doing than the other web frameworks that are not as full-featured as Django.
I can agree. Yeah, Django is definitely going to be here for the next couple of years. And for us, it's going to be the main tool for writing complex backends.
Exactly.
Of course, if something is simple and small, we can go with no-code solutions. We can go with headless stuff. We can go with many different things. Yes. But if you want to implement business logic, cover it with tests, and ensure that this logic works and it's important for a given business,
yes,
to us, Django is the thing.
All right. And yeah, I think, do we want to cover something else or leave it for the next episodes?
Are we making one more episode about Django?
We can make 2 more episodes about Django.
All right. So let's keep it.
Okay, so that's enough for the first episode, for episode number 7? All right, so what's your overview?
My overview is Django is great. If you are new to the web development, learn Python, learn Django. It is always a good idea. And I'm looking forward to see what is going to happen in the new versions, because there are some areas in Django where we can improve some of the things. So I enjoyed a lot, and I basically love Django.
Yep, I can agree. Django is well-rounded, mature, and battle-tested web framework that will get the job done. And it's here to stay, and it's going to be still relevant. Perhaps not as relevant for the part of doing HTML and forms, but for API backends, for data modeling, and for integrating with Celery, it's going to be here and it's going to stay here.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for listening and watching HackCast Season 2 episode number 7. Once again, like, subscribe, leave a comment, please. Even if it's slightly passive-aggressive comment, we'll leave it there.
We'll be happy to read it.
Yeah, we're happy to read it and we'll answer it. If you have questions or topics that you want us to cover, we are reading the comments. We are writing those comments down, and we are going to cover those questions in future episodes. So that's it from us. Thank you, Ivo.
Bye-bye.